ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas! Hello there, this is RJ. Merry Christmas to all of you. Christmas time is here again. And as usual, we're gonna have our 2-day legendary RJ Guitar Center Christmas sale. December 11 and 12, Saturday and Sunday. All the items in all the stores will be on sale. This is your chance to buy the dream guitar, keyboard, drums, guitar effects, mic stands, guitar strings, guitar straps, drumsticks, guitar parts, guitar cables, the cajon that you're dreaming about, and other musical instruments. So I will see you December 11, December 12, Saturday, Sunday for the legendary 2-day Christmas sale. 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. 20% off. 1:01 p.m. to 4 p.m. 30% off. 4:01 p.m. to 8 p.m. 40% off. 8:01 p.m. to mall closing. 50% off. All the items in all 10 stores are on sale. Taylor Guitars, 10% off all day long. The sale extends to online sale through Shopee and Lazada, and the same time frame and discounts apply. Strictly no reservations. Cash, credit cards, PayMaya, home credit, and GCash are accepted. So get ready to have a beautiful and happy Christmas. Be there for the 2-day Christmas sale of RJ Guitar Center, December 11 and December 12. If you want to check out the items ahead, go to www.rjguitarcenter.com.
For DTI Fair Trade Permit number FTEB-130818, series of 2021.
You can now listen to RJFM and DZRJ 810 AM from wherever you are. Just type in RJ 100.3 FM on TuneIn Radio, Streama, Radio Garden, and just type in RJFM for online box radio. For DZRJ 810 AM, just type in DZRJ 810 AM on TuneIn Radio, Streama, and Radio Garden. Happy listening!
Pasko, Pasko na naman. Pasko na naman sa ating bayan.
Ito po si Attorney Nikki De Vega.
At ako naman po si Attorney Carla Nicolas para sa programang
Ang Buhay at Batas. Bumabati sa inyo ng isang maligayang Pasko at manigong bagong taon.
Ako po si Banat Bay ng Trending News dito sa DZRJ. Bumabati sa inyo ng Blessed Christmas and a Happy New Year. Tuloy-tuloy lang ang banat.
Hi, I'm Barbie Atienza of Good Job Philippines, wishing everyone a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Ito po ang inyong lingkod, Tita Carmen Ignacio ng Palatuntunang Pulso ng Sambayanan na bumabati po sa lahat ng isang maligayang Pasko at manigong bagong taon.
Hello, DZRJ fans! My name is Ira Panganiban of Free Spits. I'm wishing you guys a very, very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I hope you guys have a great time.
May peace and love for one another reign in our hearts in this season and beyond. Have a Merry Christmas and a brighter and prosperous New Year. Jimmy mo na to po, tsa-tsahin mo, baby!
Hi! This is Johnny Gomez of Johnny Gomez Live, wishing us all a very meaningful Christmas and the best of 2022. Happy Holidays, Kabandido!
Hi, this is G and Marge Santos of Mystical Buffet.
Season's greetings to everyone. Here are warm wishes for a safe, healthy, and COVID-free 2022.
Merry Christmas!
Hi mga kapugad, ito po ang inyong mga lingkod. Ako po si Mark Lopez.
Si Doc Ethel.
Maricar Serrano.
Darwin Cañete.
Tom Berenguer.
Manny Biernas.
Kami po ay bumabati sa inyo ng isang maligayang Pasko at manigong bagong taon.
Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from all of us at Teleradio Bandido TV.
Pasko, Pasko na naman.
To all Teleradio Bandido viewers and listeners, you can now watch Teleradio Bandido on our new YouTube channel, RJAM News. Hit the subscribe button and like the video. Don't forget to click the bell icon so you get notified when a new video gets uploaded. Don't miss out on our dynamite lineup.
Hello and welcome to the World News Jam right here on DZRJ and RJ TV. My name is Eric Lecain and I am joined with Lali Tolentino, and we are here today live in the DZRJ studios in Makati. Lali, it's wonderful to be back in the studio for the second time in an entire year.
Yes.
So, you know, Lali, I came today from Boracay. So I was in Boracay a little earlier today, down there doing a business meeting there. And I got to say, Boracay looks pretty good. The interesting thing I have to say about Boracay, for anybody who might be wanting to go there, so last time I went to Boracay, I came back and said it was raining Koreans there. And I kind of got in a little bit of trouble for saying that. But this time it was not raining Koreans. It was not raining Japanese or Chinese. It was mostly Filipinos. And they cleaned it up really nice. There's no restaurants or buildings or anything on the other side of the walkway now. It's all just beach. And you can like walk like at a regular speed now, and you don't have to wait for a restaurant. It's great. It's the perfect time to go. I mean, it's just, there's hardly anybody there. In fact, I took pictures of the beach, and nobody was on the beach in the place that we were. So it's a really good time to head out to Boracay.
Well, you know what? After they clean it up, I mean, I heard there's a lot of changes. And at the same time, well, you know what? You didn't see much of those Koreans or the Asian tourists because, you know, we don't have much tourists yet. I mean, foreign.
No, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why you see Filipinos. And you're probably the only American over there. I mean, you know.
I saw one other white person.
So you're the second one.
And he had a tan, so I don't know.
Okay,
you know,
maybe it's not
that white. Yeah, but not a lot of international people. But you know, speaking of international, I wanted to get to some international stuff that's going on since we don't have a lot of international people here. Talk about some stuff that's going on in the week, because what we do here on the show is, as by the way, we were on YouTube and Facebook and RJ TV and DZRJ on the radio. So one of the things that we talk about here, of course, is international news. And Philippines has been in the international news this week because the human rights groups are slamming the President Joe Biden for inviting President Duterte for the Summit for Democracy, saying that in his 6-year reign of terror, it does not qualify to speak about democracy. And the International Coalition for Human Rights has called it a farce and a sick joke, that they would want to hear the ideas of how to foster a more democratic, equitable, inclusive, and sustainable world from Duterte and his reign of terror and mass murder, which is now being investigated by the ICC for crimes against humanity. They say that should disqualify him.
Well, it's their idea anyway. So if the President of the United States invited President Duterte, I mean, I don't think there's nothing wrong about it. I think, you know, because you want to hear what he's going to say. So.
Well, I think everybody's worried about his crimes against humanity and the war on drugs, but I don't think that's what he's going to be there for. I think he's mostly there to talk about democracy and a peaceful transfer of power, which is, a big example of not having a peaceful transfer of power is the United States, which they had a lot of problems with. So I think that's part of the reason that they're bringing Duterte over to talk about that, because there may be issues of a peaceful transfer of power in the Philippines if this election is close, the upcoming presidential election. Because remember, last time the vice presidential election kind of had some controversy here, and they were going on and on and on and on about that. So if it were to be that close in the presidential election, I think that's something that people were a little worried about in the world, that the Philippines wouldn't be able to handle that.
Well, you know what? They can say anything about about the transfer of power. But at the end of the day, Filipinos we're nice people. We don't really fight. I mean, of course, all the loser will say I was cheated. That's normal for politicians.
Yeah, well,
they say that. So what? I mean, just live with it.
Yeah, I mean, Africa and India. Many places where they have issues at the end of an election, and one guy thinks he's been cheated, and then a lot of people get killed, which is what happened in the United States last time. That one guy thought he was cheated, which he was not, as we found out that he was not cheated. But so anyway, that's big news there. The thing, and also the woman who won the Nobel Peace Prize, Maria Ressa, who's one of your favorite people, I know. She accepted. They allowed her to go. They allowed her to go, and she went and she accepted her Nobel Peace Prize. The courts allowed her, and she got incredible praise from the international community over that speech that she gave.
Oh yeah.
I went ahead and I listened to that speech after I saw so much news about it. I went ahead and went on YouTube and listened to it. And whether you like her or not, whether you believe the stories or not, that was a really good speech. I mean, what she said was very moving about, and it wasn't necessarily it wasn't about, it wasn't focused on the war on drugs. And it was about online violence, and online violence is real world violence, and how our personal information is sucked into a database and organized by AI and then sold to the highest bidder. And that kind of undermines what we think. And in the end, undermines human will to make people think that what we're thinking is not natural. And she, I don't want to go on and on about it, but she spoke about the threats to markets and elections. And how can you have election integrity if you don't have integrity of the facts? And I know we talk about that a lot here on the show, where I talk about integrity of facts. The problem that many people in the Philippines have right now with history about factual, misinformation on Facebook page about changing the history of the Philippines. And we've talked about that before on here. And she went on to talk about some interesting stuff that I remember that we had talked about on the show before, about the Chinese operations in which AI would create all these fake accounts and then it would spread information to the Philippines, about pro-Marcos information. And I mean, this is true because the Chinese, they want certain people to win elections, and they will go after that country, spreading misinformation in that country to change the election.
Well, there's so many. Yeah,
The Russians, by the way, do that too.
Yeah, well, if you are a good speaker, you can, say things. I mean, she's really good. I watched that the thing. It was all over anyway. So anyway, yeah. Well,
I mean, the interesting thing she said was, would you sacrifice the truth? Would you sacrifice your friends, your job, your life? And this is what journalists and all of us have to ask ourselves, is what would we do, when the truth is so flimsy now? Where does the truth come from? The truth used to come from journalism, but now it doesn't come from journalism anymore. It comes from Facebook. That's where we get our truth from. And, I think that that's her biggest concern. We need to, control facts, truth, and trust. And if we don't have that, then we're in trouble.
Yes, I agree with that. But there's so many fake news, so many stories that is not really true.
Well, what I find interesting in the Philippines is that sometimes it's the fake news that everybody believes, but the real news, the real truth, that nobody believes.
That's the problem. I know a story, I know facts and truth. I'm a Filipino. I should know better. Then, sometimes when I read newspaper and some other article, I was like, what? This is not true? because you have to discern, and you have to, it's not like everything that you read are true. You have to have your discernment. You have to verify. You have to investigate if you really want to know the truth. But like social media is one big factor here now.
I mean, this election is coming up, and then we'll move on to the questions. But the election is coming up, and we're not even in election season yet. And I have seen so much misinformation. And I don't, I hate to say this because I don't want to go after one candidate, but there's one candidate in particular that is really pushing a lot of things that are not exactly true. And I think you probably know who I would say. And like I said, I don't want to take sides, whatever, in the upcoming election, especially because we're not even close yet. But I see how the information that I see coming out on especially on Facebook, on the history of not necessarily the Marcos candidate, not Bong Marcos, but the history about his father, and some of it is just it's not true in any way, and I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. I've talked to people about this.
Mm-hmm. You know what? Okay, for me, what's going to happen here is that because there's so many stories that's going to come out. I mean, not only the Marcoses, all of them. I mean, people will decide who will be our next president. And you know what? It doesn't matter who. As long as they do their job, I mean, as president, because, the country has a lot of problems, big time. So we need to have a good leader here. I mean, not only, we don't need a rich leader. We just need somebody who has brain, somebody who has, heart for the people, somebody who's gonna look for the future of our children and grandchildren, not for what you have right now. No, somebody who has a big vision for.
I just wonder if policy is even going to be in the top 3 things that people look at for who they're going to vote for president, or is it going to be what their friend posted on their thing that they saw, that they reposted? And I just wonder how much policy is going to, what is good for me? Am I actually going to study to see which candidate is really good for me? Or am I just going to, get in the middle of all this misinformation that Maria Ressa keeps talking about is ruining the Philippines?
Okay. They can say whatever you want to say. I'm just going to vote who I'm going to vote on the next election. You guys, you choose the right person to be our president.
All right. So, since all that, right now, I think what we're going to do is we're going to read our questions from our viewers. That we get questions from our viewers about stuff that happens all over the world. So it's not just the Philippines. We talk about everything, anything that anybody wants to ask us, we will sit here and we'll talk about. So, Lolly, what is our first question of the week?
All right, guys. I have lists of questions written.
Has the list.
Okay.
Which she's reading because I don't have my glasses.
All right, I'll be the one to read this. Don't worry, Eric.
And that print is really small.
This is from Isabel of Parañaque. Do you think former U.S. Vice President Mike Pence should run against Trump in 2024 election?
Well, Mike Pence, he seems to be thinking he's going to run because he's been going across the country trying to raise money.
Really?
To, maybe run for the White House. But I guess the big question that we need to ask Mike Pence is who's going to vote for you? He is the, right-wing, super Christian, gun-loving conservative that won't do anything without asking the permission of his wife. And he's wanted to be president his whole life. And he was vice president before, and he got close to being president many times because he was the vice president of Trump. And that guy was nearly removed from office multiple times and was finally removed from office, but unfortunately being voted out by the people. So the problem was, when he was voted out, his supporters blamed Mike Pence for not illegally keeping him in office. And Pence, he sucked up to Donald Trump his whole presidency, sat on his hands, and he bit his lip. He did everything he could, everything that Trump told him to do, but he couldn't do that one thing, the one thing that Trump really wanted him to do, and that was overturn the election. So to go that authoritarian route and overturn a free and democratic election. Actually, Pence, mostly, likely, he couldn't have overturned this election even if he wanted to. So you know, he's been doing this for 4 years now with, trying to, keep Donald Trump happy. And now that the next election is coming up and there's a good chance that Trump is going to run, and even if they put Trump in jail, which that might happen, who's going to vote for Pence? Is it going to be any of the non-Trump people? No, they hate Pence for what he, all the policies and everything that he supported with Donald Trump. And the Donald Trump people hate Mike Pence. They went in during January 6th saying, hang Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence.
Yeah, I heard that. Mm-hmm.
So they're not going to vote for him either. So I wonder, who Mike Pence thinks is going to vote for him. Is it going to be the conservative, religious Christian Republicans who are basically extinct right now? I don't even know where those people are anymore. They've either, flipped and gone to the Democratic side, or they flipped and went to the crazy Trump guys. So, he may run for president, but I don't think he's going to make it past the primaries.
Mr. Mike Pence, don't run.
Mr. Mike Pence. Mike Pence, it's time to get a nice condo down in Florida.
Yes.
And I think retire, get yourself some nice shoes.
Yeah.
Take your wife there. She'll tell you what to do.
All right, let's go to Migs of Batangas. New Zealand to ban smoking for next generation. Good plan, you think? Of course.
In New Zealand, if you were born after 2008, you will never be able to legally buy a cigarette in New Zealand.
Really?
Because this law, which now is going into effect, it happens slowly. It happens over a number of years. So by the time you're old enough to buy a cigarette, it's going to be in full effect, and you won't be able to buy any cigarettes, any tobacco products at all in New Zealand.
Really?
So, this way, the way they look at it, young people will never even try to smoke. They'll never even get a chance to feel what it's like to be possibly hooked on cigarettes. Because in New Zealand, they believe that cigarettes, from what I've read about what they believe there, the politicians believe that cigarettes are for enjoyment, they're highly addictive, and most likely they will kill you. Okay, we know all this. Why do we not ban cigarettes everywhere in the world? Well, I guess that's a whole nother story. But anyway, New Zealand has said, you know what? We don't see any reason why we should have them here and why we should let people continue to get addicted to cigarettes. Now, on the other side, there are people that's saying that this is going to be a bad idea, because this is going to, if you take something that a lot of people like and you take it away from them, then all they'll do is just smuggle them in. And that'll cause crime, and there'll be gangs will form, cigarette smuggling gangs will form, and then it'll be a whole nother issue, just like the drug issue.
Okay. Good thing I don't smoke.
If you live in New Zealand and you want a cigarette, you're gonna need a boat. You can't buy one there.
All right, so let's go to Ingrid of Las Piñas. Countries like Australia, UK, Canada joined U.S. diplomatic boycott of Beijing Olympics. Big loss, you think?
In case you don't know, China is hosting the 2022 Winter Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
And China also has one of the worst human rights records in the world. We know this. We've talked about it here on the show many, many times. But you know what? Everyone knew this, and they awarded them the 2022 Olympic Games anyway. But it took the disappearance of that tennis player over the sexual allegations to get countries to finally say, okay, enough of this, China. So the U.S. started a boycott to diplomats and officials going to the Olympics. That means that athletes can still go to the Olympics, however, officials such as the president or high-profile diplomatic officials, they won't show up. And once the U.S. announced this, it would boycott other nations. They felt pressure to do it too. They thought this is the end thing to do now. And so, citing a bunch of things, the systematic removal of the Uyghurs from existence, the crackdown on democracy in Hong Kong, the constant taunting of Taiwan, the refusal to remove illegally built military bases in the China Sea or the West Philippine Sea, whatever you want to call it. But anyway, China being who they are, immediately they said, the U.S. is going to pay the price. They're going to pay the price for doing this. Now, I don't know what the price is, but But all the other countries are getting involved in this. And, countries like Australia, I mean, they have a beef with China anyway because, of the humanity things. And then China decided to, mess up their imports coming from, Australia. Canada had that issue with that woman from the technology company. And they held her for 3 years. And they finally made a swap. They took some Canadians that they picked up in China and swapped them for that lady. So, and, Boris Johnson, he's got his problems with China too. But, Boris Johnson came out and said, listen, we're not going. We're not going. However, we're going to send our athletes. Okay? It'll continue on just like before, but none of us are going. So, that's what's, we've been using the Olympics politically, almost every Olympics. There's some kind of politics things going on, but this is something that it's big because this is just about to happen. The Olympic Games is just about to happen, and now everybody's like boycotting.
Okay, so are you going, Eric?
To the Olympics?
Yeah.
That would be no. I've never thought about going because first thing, I don't like the cold weather. So if they ever put the Olympics in the Philippines, I would go.
Oh my God.
So Philippines, get the Olympics, and I'll go for sure.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I'll go with you.
You okay? All right.
All right.
So when it gets to the Philippines, Lali and I will cover it right here, DZRJ.
All right, let's go to Willie of Manila. How do you interpret when Israel cyber defense chief? We know who is attacking us, and we know how to get even. Your thoughts?
This is an interesting question because this question could go here as well. I mean, a lot of people don't like Israel. Okay, a lot of people hate Israel. A lot of people, many people. And these days, what's better than sending a nuclear bomb than sending a cyber attack, a good old-fashioned cyber attack? And if somebody's looking to get inside your banking system or your electrical grid or your water filtration system or your hospital or your military system, and most importantly, what if they want to get into your personal information of your people? Because that's the most damage you can do to a country in any way, is to get into the personal information of your people, because if you do that, you can do things like sway an election. So Israel knows they have a target on their back. And they got an army of people 24 hours a day watching for cyber attacks. What was it? We talked about this here on the show. Israel had a ransomware attack like a little while ago in one of their hospitals. And they had to completely not look at any of the records and just use a pen and paper for a while because they were worried that people were going into surgery and information about the patient was being changed. And so, and they had an issue with their water filtration system. Somebody broke into the water filtration system and changed the amount of chlorine that was in the water, and that could have killed people. I mean, they could, just by changing a few numbers, they would have added too much chlorine, and it could have caused all kinds of stuff. They had an issue in Israel in one of the LGBTQ dating sites where they stole personal information and messages off there and then reposted them. So, like private messages on that dating site, not to get money, just to cause panic and fear and anger. That's what they're doing. And when they say they know who it is, they know who it is. It's Iran. Iran's doing it. Okay. They can. These people in Israel, they're very clever. They can see. They can trace it. They know where it's coming from. So, right now, I think a lot of countries, this is a big issue now, even in the Philippines, about this happening in their country. Maria Ressa said this in her speech, that it's like, she can equate it to a nuclear bomb. It's much worse. It's in some ways, it's much worse than a nuclear bomb, because you can literally destroy a country's economy or the outlook of their leaders, and so many things that you can do with these cyber attacks. So I can see why Israel is very, paranoid.
Of course.
I don't want anybody stealing my information and posting it on the web.
Don't worry, Eric. I have this. This is very sensitive, so be careful with your information.
All right, yeah.
All right. Now let's go to Edith of Quezon City.
Scared to
All right. One of
put
your
my
favorite.
name on them.
One of your favorite country, Eric. Is Russia seriously
Yes.
planning to invade Ukraine? Why are they so interested, and what will happen to other European countries?
Well, one of the things that we've been asking right here on DCRJ is why all the movement in Russia? Remember we talked about this? I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. All this movement going on the Russian border. And of course, what does that do? It makes everybody nervous. And they asked Russia, hey, what are you guys doing over there? Why are you running tanks around? And Russia turned around and said, hey, it's none of your business. So we can do whatever we want on our side. And the problem is, as we said this before, it is our business. Because, Russia in the past has invaded countries, like, sovereign countries. So, and the Ukraine has a deal with America that you help us, we help you, which is part of, that whole issue with Donald Trump. When Donald Trump made that infamous call to the Ukraine and said, hey, you know what, we help protect you against Russia. However, you got to do me a favor. You got to make sure that I win the election. Tell me dirt on Joe Biden. And then he got impeached. But anyway, so that's what I mean. This is the thing. We protect, the United States protects the Ukraine. So Russia now is running up down the border with their tanks and so forth, and they're saying, oh, this is nothing. But you don't mass 175,000 troops on the border if you're just hanging out doing training exercises. I mean, 175,000 troops, you don't just bring all those guys in from Russia just to sit on the border of the Ukraine unless you're planning to do something. And what this means, especially for us, the rest of the world, and so forth, if Russia were to invade the Ukraine, then obviously the United States would have to get involved, and they would have to cause a conflict there. And then what would happen next? The European countries would also get involved because Ukraine is right there. The next step over is them. So here we go, World War III.
Okay, I will interfere. So there will be no war.
But I think, here's what I think is happening. I think Russia is doing this to stir up a lot of trouble. I don't think they plan to go to war. I think they want to stir up trouble to make everybody nervous. And then they make everybody nervous, and then they'll want a deal. Okay, all right, let's make a deal. Like, for instance, NATO can't keep pushing up against the border and moving us back, because there is no deal right now with NATO and Russia. So I think that's part of what Putin's plan is here. He's trying to scare everybody, make everybody really nervous, and then maybe we can work out okay, we'll pull out, we'll take all our guys back, let's just make a deal. So let's wait and see if that happens. See if we're right here. Our predictions are right here on the show with Russia and what they're going to do in Ukraine, because man, we don't want an invasion of the Ukraine, because golly, that would cause so many problems with. And we got enough problems with the virus and all that's the variants and stuff, and we don't need another war.
All right, I'm going to have coffee with Putin, so he will not do this.
Have a talk with President Putin there, Lolly Tolentino,
yes.
And use your charm. I hear he's single.
Really?
I mean, that's what I heard.
And Putin is the richest man now in the world.
No question. No question. You will not see that in the record books that he is the richest person, but he is.
Yes.
We all know he is. He's got more money. He's just got it stashed away in a big bunker somewhere.
Of course. He is in power.
He's got his all, yeah.
All right. Let's go to Fidela of Bulacan. All right. Did U.S. court reject Trump request to block files? What do you expect?
Okay. Yeah, we've been following this story for a while now, and the U.S. Appeals Court this week rejected a bid by Donald Trump to block the investigators of the January 6th Capitol riots from accessing the White House records, which is what he doesn't want. He is scared to death that they're going to get hold of those records, because once they get hold of those records and that becomes public, the public will then have access to what's going on, and then it's going to be on television. So when you are president of the United States, everything that you say and do is recorded.
Of course.
In the past. Now, since Donald Trump, a lot of that has changed. Oval Office meetings, meeting with Putin, meetings with business associates, they were all done in secret to make sure, that nobody recorded what he was doing, because sometimes what he was doing, well, there's a reason why you don't record stuff if you're a president, because you're doing something that might be illegal, such as what happened with the Ukraine when he made that call to the Ukraine, but they recorded it, even though he didn't know they were recording it. And they recorded it, then he got in trouble, then he got impeached. But, what they want to do is they want to find out. They want to find out, just maybe they're not going to do anything, but they just want to know the events leading up to January 6th and what Trump's actions were and what was recorded and what was logged in the office archives. That's all they want to do. And his legal team is doing everything. They've jumped through all kinds of hoops to make sure that those records are never revealed. So, Trump took a big hit this week when the appeals court, because this is the final appeal. This is the final appeal. I think they can get those records very soon. So, they just want to know what the president was doing. What did he say? What was his involvement before January 6th? And what part did he play in the planning of it? And when those people went in to kill congresspeople, which is what they did, they went in saying they were going to kill people. They were looking for Nancy Pelosi. They were looking for Vice President Mike Pence. They were looking for AOC. They were looking for all these people to kill. Who was it that told them to go in there and kill all those people? Now, was it just the crowd being the crowd, or did somebody say, hey, you know what, let's storm the Capitol? Who was it that planned this? This could not have been, a lot of people said, just a wild bunch of crowd rushing the Capitol. They think that this had to be planned because they knew where they were going. They knew what rooms to go in. They knew where they were. So they want to know what involvement the president had, and the only way to know that for sure is all his phone calls are recorded, all his text messages, everything like that are in the archive.
Oh.
So we can't wait to see what those archives say.
I can't wait. It's
so juicy, I can't even imagine.
I think your guess is as good as mine, Eric. So we'll wait.
So anyway, I don't think they'll ever catch him at anything, but at least we'll know. We'll know what happened.
All right, let's go to Milo, Quezon City. Aha. All right. Please share simple ways to avoid dementia.
Oh, something from our health corner.
Health corner.
It's interesting thing about dementia. I have a little bit of experience with dementia because, my mother had very severe dementia, and I spent all that time with her, watching her go through it, watching her go through the different steps, where she would just start to forget stuff, and then, then she would forget, like you would give her dinner, and then 5 minutes after she's finished, she's like, when's dinner? To the point where then she just stopped talking and then just started staring. And I think one of the best things that you can do for a dementia patient is talk to them. I think that is the number one thing you can do. I think one of the problems that we did with my mother was, one of the things that led to her dementia was television. Is she just wanted to sit there and watch television. And we did. We let her just watch TV, and people would leave and just let her sit and watch TV for like 6 hours. And so, they just stare at the television. They don't have any interaction. They don't talk. They sleep a lot. And I think that's one of the things, if I could go back and do it all over again, I think that would be one of the big things I would do, is make sure that people were constantly coming in and talking to her and taking her outside, not letting her just stay in the room all the time, because, and I've read about this, that leads to dementia. Now, there's a whole bunch of things. Eating healthy, maintaining weight, make sure that they exercise. Don't let them drink too much alcohol. Because usually when somebody is having dementia or getting close to having dementia, somebody is kind of in charge of them. Somebody's kind of taking care of them. So if you're the one that's taking care of them, watch out for the alcohol. Don't let them smoke. And blood pressure. Blood pressure can increase the effects of dementia very quickly. So make sure that they take their blood pressure medicine. And
but you know what? I have friends, and most of my friends, they still drink.
Yeah.
I mean, but hopefully because I'm younger than them, and hopefully they will, they will not get into this dementia yet, because I might lose a friend. By losing a friend by not I cannot talk to them because maybe she or he forgot me already.
Yeah. I mean, that my mother never forgot me, but she forgot everybody else.
Really?
the
favorite son.
The caregiver who would come in every day for a year, and then mom could never remember her name.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, Mom, she was here just this morning.
Yeah.
And then, the stuff starts happening, especially when it comes to meals. Like they would eat and then they would forget that they ate, or they forgot that they, did this, or forgot that they said that. They forgot that you were just in the room. And I think a lot of it, when I would talk to her, she would come back. She would come back to us. And then you don't talk to her and you let her sit in front of the television, and then she would fade away.
But let me ask you, Eric, how old was she at that time?
This started when she was 87. So 87, 88, 89, and by the time she was 90, it was pretty far. She was into Alzheimer's by the time she was 90 years old.
Okay, so to some of my friends watching, listening to us right now, guys, we're still young, so we're still, you have more time. So I know some friends are watching us, so see you guys later.
Yeah, don't forget how old you are.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do. Sometimes I got to open up my passport and do the math with the calculator, because I can't remember what my age is, because I lie about it so much. But anyway.
All right. I have a lot of friends. They said they're 25, but they look 90. But anyway. Yes. Let's go to Arnold.
Continually 35 for the rest of my life.
Arnold Pasay. What do you think of Supreme Court decision on the anti-terrorism law? Eric, you study law, so now explain this to me. About the Philippines.
Yeah, this is the Supreme Court in the Philippines, and this has to do with the Duterte administration, the anti-terrorism law, which a lot of people have been having trouble with. And I'm not very surprised that the Supreme Court upheld the legality of most of this. They needed to make some changes, and they did make some changes, but the problem that people have, and we've discussed this before, about this anti-terrorism law, and I think it will continue, the critics will continue to criticize it, it's because it's the way it's written, and it includes protests against government as a terrorist act. And when you start to mix those two together, the word authoritarian regime starts to come into play. And being able to allow for detention without a charge, allowing a council to decide, a council that's put together by the president himself, that decides who is a terrorist and who's not a terrorist, and who can be arrested and who can be surveilled. So the critics are having, the problem that people are having with this law is obvious, that it can be used against political opponents. Because of the way it's written. Now, it's not supposed to be, but it could be. So I think that's why a lot of people are saying this is why Duterte wanted to put it in place in the first place, because he wanted to be able to go after his political opponents. Now, who knows if that's true or not, but there were several parts that were changed, such as public protest, dissent, work stoppages, other acts that are not intended to cause death or serious harm. So they will not be considered terrorism, and there's also a change in the way the presidential appointed council, how they can adopt requests made by outside entities on who is and is not a terrorist. But people are still worried about the ability to arrest people without warrant or charge, and how are people being detained for such long periods of time without being charged.
You know what? I will just let them resolve this issue. I mean, if they, I know that they're going to change something about the
Who are you talking about? The Supreme Court? The Supreme Court's already they already made their ruling, didn't they?
Yeah, I know. That's why. So it's already there. So is it final? I don't know yet.
I mean, okay. So Duterte says there's nothing to be worried about if you're not a terrorist. The question is, who gets to decide who's a terrorist and who's not a terrorist? And if you speak out against the government, does that make you a terrorist? And there's where the rub is. That's the question. And I know that they've already gone and said, okay, that group is a terrorist group and that group is a terrorist, and some of them are. Some are, people that want to cause harm to the country or cause chaos. So the question is, how far can a politician take that? And right now they're saying, oh, no, it's fine. Duterte's not going to do that. But maybe Duterte's not in power at this point, 4 years from now or 2 years from now. And the president now decides, hey, I need to use this anti-terrorism law because I can get that guy and take that guy out and take that guy out.
Okay.
So I think that's,
I will not debate on this anti-terrorism law. I will just wait.
Don't be,
No,
don't,
because I'm not a terrorist, so I am not worried about this, Eric.
But you may. What if I say you're a terrorist?
Well, it depends.
I mean, if you start.
What kind of terrorist I am?
If you start carrying a machine gun, I don't know. Lolly with a machine gun. That would be an interesting.
I did. I mean,
poster.
I carry that for picture taking. So do I? Well, in the first place, I don't look like a terrorist, Eric. So even though I carry a machine gun, it doesn't matter. So anyway,
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you're not that scary.
I look good with a machine gun.
Yeah,
So.
I look scary, but only in the morning. But I just, okay, people don't want to talk about it, maybe, but it's one thing that I do think about sometimes about this, because if, let's just say, for instance, that the council gets to decide who is and who is not a terrorist, and how far could they take this? And who knows? I think they need to adjust the law even more, just a little bit, because it's not a bad law. It's a good idea, but the question is the way it's worded. And I think that's the problem that a lot of people have is if you come out with your sign and you say down with this president, and then somebody sees you, and then you get red flagged, and then you're red flagged, and then all of a sudden all this bad stuff is written about you on Facebook, and then some vigilante decides to hunt you down and kill you.
Yeah, that's the secure part of it. So you guys, you better not be terrorists at all. At all. Just be nice and be a good citizen of the Republic of the Philippines.
I know. But the Philippines is a free and democratic society.
Yeah, that's why.
Okay. So you part of living in the Philippines is that you can protest the government if you want to.
Yeah, just don't be too violent.
No. Yeah, don't shoot anybody.
Yeah,
like we do in the United States.
I mean, your people there are crazy, I can say.
Yes.
In the Philippines, we got some crazy people too, and this is just don't get tourists about it. Anyway, let's go to Joy of Makati.
You can't walk around with an AK-47 like we can in the United States.
If I see you walking with that, Eric, I'm going to I don't know. But anyway, what do you think of Lacson Soto tandem? Because I personally think they should be a good tandem to consider after BBM and Sara compared to other candidates.
Who wrote this question? Who was the person?
This is Joy of Makati.
Joy of Makati. Yeah, for me, this is kind of a leading question, isn't it? So I'll just follow the lead. In my opinion, now here again, I'm not a Filipino, as you might see. Lacson and Soto will not be a major factor in this election. I know a lot of people are going to yell, scream, and write questions on I think. But it's not that Lacson is not a good candidate and he doesn't have good ideas, because he does. If you listen to him, he actually has really good ideas. However, in the end, he is not the anti-Marcos candidate. Lenny is. And Lenny is still hoping that the rest of the group is going to consider consolidating and going up against Marcos. It's trying to stop him from controlling any of those Marcoses from controlling the Philippines again. And Lacson, and I look at, like I said, all the different candidates, I look at their policies and I try and read up and see if I can understand who's who. And Lacson's got good policies on the pandemic and the West Philippine Sea and
got a good platform.
The social inequality in the Philippines. And there's some weaknesses right now in their Marcos. Which may pull him down some and let some of the others come up. But will it be Lacson when it comes down to the wire? Will he be one of those guys that's going to put up a fight let's just say, if they manage to pull Marcos down a little bit, will he be one of the front runners? And, I don't know if he would be. first thing, Laxon said that he will not engage in negative comments about other candidates and other candidate campaigns. And I mean, if you don't engage in negative stuff, this is the way presidential elections should be. This is the way they should be. They shouldn't be allowed to spread misinformation in Facebook, and they shouldn't be allowed to do all these things that they do, but they do. And so if you're going to say, well, I'm going to take the high road, I don't think you can win a Philippine election if you take the high road. If you do the good, stand-up thing and you're a good citizen and you don't say bad things about the other candidates, can you win?
Well, maybe not, but you know what? Maybe we don't know other people also, their idea, because I can see that among the candidates, except for 3 people who doesn't really talk against other candidates, are Lacson, Soto, and BBM. The three of them. The rest
BBM?
Wait a minute. I mean,
my head's gonna explode.
Okay, whatever, Eric. I know. I mean, this is your, these are the people, like.
I mean, the amount of misinformation that's coming out of the Marcos campaign is just overwhelming.
That's why, it's, but if you really take a look at the real campaign, I mean, we are not in the campaign period yet.
No, that's what I mean.
They will just have the candidates, but you know what? The Comelec still, need to release the name of the real candidates. We're not there yet, but there's so many talks about so many candidates.
It's an interesting point that you made just now, because Duterte, of course, when he ran for president, he had a huge misinformation campaign going on behind him, but it didn't start until a couple of months or several months before the election. This has already started now. We're not even really in the election season yet, per se, but the amount of misinformation that is flowing out through his Facebook is absolutely unbelievable, which is like I said, Duterte did a lot of crazy stuff too, but he did it much closer to the election. It's already started now.
Yeah, because during that time, Duterte, the only time he declared that he's running is the last minute. He started this last minute thing.
He started the whole thing about doing the substitution.
Exactly. So now it's a different, it's getting different scenario now. Look at if you're just looking at the motorcade and talks about these people, oh my God, it's overwhelming. So, there's a lot of people who are wise, and I know they will think whom to vote, and we're tired of BS and the whole thing. But that's how way it is. People talk about somebody, bring down somebody to win the election, and it's up to people to decide. And unfortunately, I got friends that I listen to their, when they talk about candidates. I was about to ask them, really? Do you really know your candidates? Are you serious?
I would say mostly no. Mostly no. Most people,
I think so.
They don't. When you ask somebody the policies of the candidate, they don't know. I mean, most people don't even care. It's more about. It's more about what you read. People thrive on, and I don't mean to say this in a bad way. They thrive on the bad stuff, the hatred. That's what sells ads on Facebook.
But should not be, if you're
no, of course it is. This is what Maria Ressa was talking about. This is not how we should have campaigns. We shouldn't do elections based on misinformation. And I think that the amount of fake news that I see coming out now, right now, that's being put out, especially against people that it's not true, a lot of it's crazy stuff. In fact, I think Lenny Ribeiro has had to hire people to just go after all the fake news that they keep putting out on the internet. So to say, I think right now, as far as Laxon goes, he's not involved really in this. Nobody's really saying a lot of stuff about him, so he doesn't have to respond to things like some of these other candidates do. I don't think he is going to be a major factor in this election. But like I said, if you read his policies and his ideas, he's actually a pretty good candidate. But is he one of those people that's going to juice up the public? That's are they going to have? Are they going to block off EDSA with all the cars and everything because of Laxon? I don't know if that's going to be him.
I don't think so. I know he's a good candidate, but then of course, people has different. We have more people who are we call it masa. So the people, they can. I don't know. I don't want to say anything yet, but like I'm going to
Come
tell.
on, Lolly, say it.
No, thank you.
You know, the superstars, the people that are already in the news, people we know that they know your name. I mean, right now the Philippine election is actually going to be, most notably, Philippine elections are not an international news item. They're not. I mean, they'll make it. They'll say, okay, this person was elected for the Philippine president, and people in America go, okay, whoever that is. They said, Duterte was elected, and they're like, who's that? Nobody's ever heard of him. Now everybody's heard of him because he got himself in the news. But this one's going to be different because this one has somebody in the election that everybody knows.
Okay. Well,
So,
yeah.
that more than answers the question. And this is the last part, then I will move on. Can somebody win a Philippine election without playing dirty? Is it possible?
Yeah. I don't know. That's my answer.
I do.
I don't know.
No, you can't. You have to get in there, you have to grind it out. Anyway.
I know that's too
me.
bad, and I don't like that.
I know.
Honestly. All right.
It's too bad in every country, not just this
I
one.
know.
In
I know.
every
That's
country.
why we need to practice their kind of good time of election, but it doesn't really work that way. So anyway, let's go to Henry of Pasay for a change there, Rick.
Henry of Pasay.
Do you think Filipinos should celebrate better Christmas this year? What do you think?
Oh my goodness, I hope so. I mean, good Lord, the Philippines could use a little happiness. It looked like Christmas was finally coming to the Philippines. The malls are making a comeback. The restaurants were filling up. Mariah Carey is blaring that same song over and over and over again. It looked like the Philippines was coming back to normal just in time for Christmas. And then this variant snuck its nose in there, and now we've had to take a step back from Christmas and go, all right, okay, we're good, we're fine. However, we're not going to let international people in like we thought we were. December 1st, they were going to start letting international people come in from green countries, and I think they've taken a breather on that because they're worried. They're worried about this. There were rumors going around that the face shield was going to have to make a comeback.
Might be. But not sure yet.
And, that was a big step for the Philippines, getting rid of the face shield, because everybody hates the face shield.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So, because you can't carry it with you. You can't, and you walk outside in the wind and it blows and you have to chase it on the sidewalk. So, I think that the Philippines was so ready for Christmas this year. And I hope that they come out soon and say that the Omicron variant is not as bad as people are saying it is. Some people are already saying that it's not quite as bad as we thought it might be. And then some people saying, oh, it's the worst one ever. But, and then the worst possible thing is they find a case of it in the Philippines. And I know that it's probably here already, but they haven't found a case of it yet. We just hope that they don't, because if they do, the Philippine government sometimes can get a little crazy when it comes to lockdowns and things. And I'm just worried that come around Christmas time, they're going to get scared again, and they're going to go, instead of going down to level 1, they're going to go, we should go back up to level 3.
Yeah, they say that, they're not considering to bring down to level 1 yet.
No,
because of,
they were talking about it. They were talking about it.
Yeah, but, I think we should not really, because we don't want to get that Omicron variant here. I mean, nobody wants that. We're okay now. We can, you can see the traffic when oh my God, for the last few days. Traffic is back. And then when you go to the mall, you see people shopping. And my God, a restaurant? Do you have lineup of people? Like how many people? I mean, like in Greenbelt one time, I think yesterday. My God, a long line of, people, like 20 of them outside
the regular Philippines. That's the regular Philippines.
This is the normal Philippines.
But they had, South Africa was due to be able to come back to the Philippines, and they stopped that right away, letting the people from South Africa come back. I hope that, because it would have been great if they would have allowed international tourists to come back to the Philippines during Christmas, because I think that there would have been millions of people coming to the Philippines for Christmas, and that would have done a huge boost to the economy. And I feel bad for the Philippines because of the scare of the new variant, and then they had to stop it. They were all set, they were all ready for it, December 1st, and then now they have to take a step back. So But let's see how Christmas unfolds.
Yeah, I mean, just that's why, some companies are saying, okay, just do your virtual Christmas party.
Yeah, a lot of people I know, they're like, okay, we're done. We're having our Christmas party, and then they do. They go out and have their Christmas party. And I've been around a lot. In the last 2 weeks, I've been to multiple cities in the Philippines, and masks are now not seen a lot. Like I go to places and a lot of people aren't wearing masks now. So we're starting to slide back to where we were before. And maybe we're okay, maybe we're fine, but maybe we're not. And so we don't want to see any kind of raise in cases, because right now in a lot of towns, they're having 0 cases.
Yes.
And so, because we want to have a great Christmas and we want to have a lot of fun. So Lolly and I can be back here again next week with the World News Jam to keep talking about these things and how great the Philippines is doing. Because Lolly Tolentino, we are out of time.
Yes, as usual.
As usual, we're out of time. So, in any case, for me, Eric Lecain, and Lolly Tolentino here on the World News Jam on DZRJ and RJTV, we will see everybody next week with more stories going on around the world that we'll sit here and we'll discuss. So for just now, for me and Lolly and all the people here at DZRJ, everybody be safe out there, and we'll see you next week.
The views and comments of the hosts and guests are not necessarily those of the station.
Radio Garden. Happy listening!